I want you to try and imagine, just for a second, that you're lying in bed. It's a completely quiet, completely safe Tuesday night.
Right, just a normal evening.
Yeah, exactly. But suddenly, out of nowhere, your body's internal alarm system just goes off. Your heart starts hammering against your ribs.
Oh, wow.
Your muscles clench up so tight that they actually ache. Your blood pressure spikes. Your body is just flooding your system with cortisol and adrenaline.
Like a massive chemical rush.
Yes, you are absolutely biologically primed for a life-or-death survival situation. But there's no threat. There's nothing there. Now, imagine that the alarm never turns off.
That is just terrifying to even think about.
Right. You just have to live like that day after day, trying to navigate the grocery store aisle or, I don't know, have a normal conversation with your family, all while your nervous system is essentially screaming at you that you are in imminent mortal danger.
It's exhausting to even conceptualize carrying that kind of physiological burden, you know? What you're describing is, well, it's a state of biological lock-in.
Biological lock-in.
Yeah. It's a condition where the body's deeply ingrained survival mechanisms have essentially short-circuited. They're hijacking a person's daily existence long after the actual danger has passed.
And that physical lock-in, that is the silent reality for a massive number of our military veterans. And really, that is the starting point for today's deep dive, because today is May 14th, 2026.
Which puts us squarely in the middle of National Military Appreciation Month.
Exactly. Congress actually established that back in 1999.
Right, and it encompasses a whole bunch of things, right? Like, there are 6 national observances packed into this one month.
Yeah, let me see. It's Loyalty Day, Public Service Recognition Week.
VE Day, Military Spouse Appreciation Day.
Right, and Armed Forces Day, and of course, Memorial Day.
And you see the public gratitude everywhere right now. You know, the parades getting organized, people donating to charities like the USO.
And the military discounts at restaurants and stores all month long.
Exactly. But here's the thing. If the parade ends and the uniform comes off, and a veteran's nervous system is still firing on all cylinders like you described earlier, the public gratitude doesn't necessarily reach that private struggle.
It really doesn't. And I think true appreciation means supporting the complex realities these veterans face. So the mission of this deep dive is to move past the discounts and really explore modern trauma-informed veteran recovery.
Which is such a crucial shift in perspective.
It is. Specifically, we're examining the work of David Burke. He's an addiction recovery consultant with, over 20 years of experience in this space. He's an LAADC-CA and an ICADC.
And we're also looking at the specialized care models at places like Sierra Health Plus Wellness in Northern California, which heavily feature this type of approach.
Right. So let's get into it. We're moving from the very public celebration of veterans to the hidden private struggles of reintegration. And when you look at the Pew Research data we've been reviewing, it paints a pretty stark picture.
It's definitely not just a small fraction of individuals having a tough couple of weeks adjusting to civilian life.
No, not at all. The data says between 27% and 44% of veterans report having significant difficulty readjusting.
That upper threshold, 44%, that is a staggering portion of the veteran population. And the research notes that this struggle isn't distributed evenly either.
Right. The friction is amplified for specific demographics.
Yeah, we see it heavily in veterans who served in the post-9/11 era or those who were involved in direct combat. Also veterans who sustained serious injuries and those who intimately knew someone who was killed or injured.
So what does this all mean? If we have this massive population dealing with severe readjustment issues, we really need to define the mechanics of the problem.
We do, and a lot of the literature points to this specific clinical term, which is dual diagnosis or co-occurring disorders.
Dual diagnosis, meaning they have two things going on at once.
Exactly. That terminology is really the linchpin to understanding the modern recovery landscape. It means a person is actively battling a primary mental health condition like post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD.
Okay.
And at the exact same time, they are battling a substance use disorder, an SUD. They exist concurrently and, they feed off one another.
And the numbers back that up completely. Pew Research shows that 20% of veterans dealing with PTSD reported struggling with alcohol or substance abuse in just the first few years after leaving the military.
It's a huge overlap.
And it gets even more concentrated when you look at veterans actively seeking care, Of the veterans in VA care diagnosed with PTSD, 27% also have a diagnosed substance use disorder.
That's more than 1 in 4.
Right. So historically, it seems like the medical system kind of forced patients to pick a lane,
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you either go to a rehab facility to get sober, or you go to a psychiatrist to deal with your trauma. But, I mean, attempting to treat PTSD while ignoring the substance abuse, or vice versa, it's like trying to fix a plumbing leak while the house is literally on fire.
That is a great way to put it. You're fixing a symptom, not the core driver of the behavior.
Why did we ever treat them separately? It just leads to such fragmented care.
Well, what's fascinating here is that treating these conditions sequentially, meaning one after the other, is an outdated model that just missed the biological reality. People with SUDs are at a particular risk for primary mental conditions. The old mentality was, get your substance use under control first, then we can do the deep trauma therapy.
But the substance use isn't just a separate hobby.
Exactly. As David Burke's consulting work heavily emphasizes, the substance use in these cases is rarely just recreational. It is a profound, desperate coping mechanism. They are trying to self-medicate an untreated hyperactive nervous system.
Because if the alarm bell is ringing constantly in your head, alcohol or opioids are, frankly, the only things dulling the noise.
Precisely. If a provider removes the coping mechanism, the substance, without simultaneously treating the root trauma, they leave the patient entirely vulnerable. They're exposed to the full force of their PTSD symptoms.
Which means they're almost guaranteed to relapse.
Yeah, because the internal fire is still raging. So treating them simultaneously is really the only way to achieve sustainable long-term recovery. You have to address the trauma and the chemical dependency at the exact same time, ideally with a cross-disciplinary team.
Okay, to really grasp how that integrated care works, I think we need to look under the hood of the trauma itself.
The biological root.
Right. We're moving from the behavioral symptoms, the addiction, to what PTSD actually does to the human body. Here's where it gets really interesting, because I feel like society often talks about PTSD as simply, having bad memories.
Like it's just a psychological hangover you can talk your way out of.
Yes. But the source material explicitly defines it as a physical, biological lock-in. How does this physiological understanding actually change the way we approach a patient?
It changes everything. You have to understand the autonomic nervous system. Your nervous system has built-in automatic reflexes for dealing with highly stressful, life-threatening events. The first response is mobilization.
The classic fight-or-flight response.
Exactly. It's necessary for combat survival. When a threat is detected, the brain signals the body to mobilize. Heart rate accelerates, blood pressure rises, muscle tension increases. It's an evolutionary masterpiece.
Right, it keeps the soldier alive.
And in a healthy system, once the danger passes, the body initiates a rest and digest protocol and returns to normal balance.
But with severe or repeated trauma, that doesn't happen.
No, and that brings us to the second reflexive response, which is immobilization.
What does that look like?
This happens when the stress is just too overwhelming. The danger passes, but the nervous system is completely unable to return to normal balance. The person gets stuck. They are biologically stuck in that state, and that is the actual definition of PTSD.
Wow. So their nervous system is basically locked.
Yes. And understanding that completely shifts the paradigm of care. Instead of asking a patient, what is wrong with you? Which, pathologizes them.
Right. It makes it sound like a character flaw.
Exactly. The core philosophy of David Burke's trauma-informed care model asks a different question. It asks, what have you experienced, and what kind of care will help you heal?
That is such a powerful distinction. It honors the veteran's experience rather than just slapping a label on them.
It creates safety, because if the biology is functionally rewired, a short-term quick fix at a generic rehab center just isn't going to make a dent.
Which brings us to the practical application. How does the Sierra Health Plus Wellness model actually treat this complex web? Because you need more than a 30-day program.
You need a continuum of care. That's a phrase defined by SAM-HSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
A continuum of care, meaning it's stepped.
Yes. Clients enter at an appropriate level and then step up or down in intensity as needed. It's a seamless progression.
Okay. Let's walk through those stages.
It typically starts with a comprehensive assessment. If there's severe chemical dependency, the next step is medical detox.
Right, 24/7 medical supervision.
Exactly. Then they might use medication-assisted treatment, or MANA, to help regulate brain chemistry.
And then the therapeutic work starts.
Right, moving into inpatient or outpatient dual diagnosis treatment and primary mental health care, then eventually stepping down into sober living, and finally alumni and family groups.
And what's really cool is the access to this care. Sierra Health Plus Wellness is an approved VA community care provider thanks to the VA Mission Act.
Which removes huge logistical barriers.
Yeah, they have locations all over Northern California: Monterey, Concord, Reno, Sacramento, and Roseville. So veterans don't have to uproot their entire lives.
And we also have to mention their new facility opening in 2025.
Oh, the Bangor, California facility, yes.
Yeah.
This is the 32-acre rural estate.
Mm-hmm.
It's offering private, gender-specific residential care for adult men.
That physical environment is so important for unsticking the nervous system. You can't heal a hypervigilant brain in a chaotic hospital ward.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more, specifically looking at the therapies they use, because there is a really striking blend of clinical and holistic therapies happening here.
It's very comprehensive.
Yeah, you've got cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, sitting right alongside brain spotting.
Which target different areas of the brain.
Right, CBT is more cognitive, dealing with thought patterns,
Mm-hmm.
but brain spotting accesses the deeper subcortical areas where the physiological trauma is stored.
It processes it organically, yeah.
But then, right alongside that clinical stuff, you have nutritional counseling, art and music therapy, physical fitness, and mindfulness and yoga. Why is this specific blend so necessary to unstick the nervous system?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, trauma affects the mind, the body, and the spirit. So recovery must target all three.
You literally have to treat the whole person.
Yes, the body keeps the score. You use CBT for the mind, brain spotting for the deep brain, and yoga or physical fitness to literally move the somatic tension out of the muscle tissue. Symptom reduction isn't the primary goal here.
It's not just about managing an illness.
No, restoring dignity, purpose, and overall quality of life is the real goal.
I love that. And that really echoes David Burke's central thesis from his advocacy and his Hope, Healing, and Wellness podcast.
Absolutely. His core message is that recovery is not a single event.
It's an ongoing process.
Right. It requires endurance. But the optimistic part is that healing is absolutely possible. The right care can completely change the direction of a life.
It's a deeply hopeful message. And, as we wrap up this deep dive into the sources, I think there's a big takeaway here for you, the listener.
Even if you aren't a veteran yourself. Understanding how trauma physically affects the nervous system and seeing the necessity of compassionate, trauma-informed care. It just makes us a more empathetic society.
It completely shifts how you view human behavior, replacing judgment with curiosity. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay.
We've spent all this time analyzing how the extreme environments of combat can cause a human nervous system to become physically stuck in immobilization.
Right. The alarm gets triggered and stays on.
Right. But think about everyday life. If extreme trauma can lock a nervous system down, how might the smaller, accumulated everyday stressors of modern civilian life be subtly doing the same thing?
Oh, wow.
Are we, without even realizing it, keeping our own nervous systems subtly stuck in mobilization or immobilization? Just from the constant notifications, financial pressures, the news cycle?
That is a fascinating question. The body doesn't necessarily distinguish between types of stress, just the load.
Exactly. It's something for all of us to explore on our own. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the sources today.
It's been a really important conversation.
It really has. We hope this has given you a profound new perspective and wish you all a very thoughtful Military Appreciation Month.